You join us today on a ridiculously windy canal. This is the Stainforth and Kidby Canal. It's a very well known venue. However, we're here today and that's to show you some of the tips and tricks that you can use to help you combat venues like this, which are predominantly pole fishing, but we can tackle them without the pole and still catch those target fish. I'm not fishing a big venue. We're generally fishing for small fish on places like this, so I'm just fishing a nice light XRS light feeder rod coupled with a 3000 reel. I'm fishing with braid, 0.10 submerged, and the shot leader I'm using with that is just the same length as the rod. That is it. Normally I wouldn't do that, but when we're only casting at short range, I don't mind casting off the shot leader knot. So that is just putting a little bit of cushion into this setup, which is what you sometimes need when you're fishing with braid. All I've got is a nice, simple, free-running rig today, and that is just a snap link swivel, free-running on that 8-pound shot leader, and that's running down to just a stopper bead there. So that's just pulled onto the line. It's really nice and soft. Pulls onto the line really nice and tight because that's the smallest rubber stopper that you can get, so that's really nice and tight, and it also means it doesn't damage the shot leader as well. Okay, so it makes it nice and strong. I've then got a piece of line there that's only probably about it's about 6 inches long, and then I've just got a loop, which is where my hook length is attached. They're attached loop to loop style. I'm kicking off with 0.13 hook length, and I'm starting on a size 16 MXB2 hook, and that is it. If we do find that there's bigger fish there, or we've got to change for any other reason, then we can obviously do that. But at the moment, right at the beginning of the session, we don't really know what to expect. So a size 16 is just a nice sensible hook to start on. This particular stretch of canal is usually dominated by long pole fishing, so it's that sort of 12 to 13 metre sort of length pole. So that is a line I'm going to be feeding. I'm going to be fishing it with a feeder, but whilst that line is going to be settling, I'm going to feed that one a little bit heavier. I'm going to start off a little bit further across towards that open water in front of that really inviting boat. Well, I've had 5 or 6 casts on that longer line, and I've got to admit it looks absolutely perfect over there. There's a beautiful boat there. There's a little bit of depth as well, and it's really nice and quiet. But I've just had that one little perch, and that's it. I haven't had any other indications. But as we know, on venues like this, with different depths, we've got quite a bit of water to play with. We've covered our options by putting that long pole line in, and that's normally the line to fish when conditions are okay and you can present it with a pole. So I've fed it. I'm going to drop on that now and kick off with that same hook bait. I've got a live red maggot and a dead pinky on a size 16 MXB2, and I'm just going to drop a nice little 20 gram feeder on that, and hopefully there's going to be 1 or 2 fish there waiting for us. Well, look at that one, second cast. What a surprise, fantastic. I haven't had any fish on that longer line. That line is probably, it's less than half the depth of this one. First cast we had a little perch, and this cast we've had an absolutely immaculate skimmer. Look at that. Second cast, and it was as soon as the feeder went in. So it was obviously there on that feed we fed earlier on, just there waiting for us. Beautiful fish. So the all important ground bait mix. We don't know if we're going to catch any skimmers, bream or anything today, but with ground bait feeder fishing, if you get the mix quite right, sometimes you can catch all different species. The mix I've gone for today, it's a bit of an experiment for me, I've mixed two mixers that I'm very confident in, but I've mixed them both together to try and get something that I think suited for this venue. The mix I've got is a 50-50 mix of Thatcher's Green and Skimmer. Okay, so what we've got here is a nice combination of fish meal, that's in the Thatcher's, but I'm toning that down by cutting it with the Skimmer mix. The Skimmer, there's lots of biscuit in there, it's a really sweet mix. So what I've got is a mix that is fish meal, because we'd like to think with a chance of a few bream, but it's not too strong, it's not too overpowering, and so we should be able to catch lots of different species with this type of a mix. And I think the colour's nice as well. Lots of people talk about the colour, but I think that's a nice dark green colour. As regards actual feeding, I'm a big believer, especially on canals, that a lot of the time if you feed a fish in, a lot of the fishing on here is done with a pole, and lots of people fish with live maggots. Lots of the bream fishing I do, it's dead maggots. For me on canals, I love to have some live maggots. So I've got plenty of live red maggots. Casters, we know how important casters can be, certainly on venues like this. So we've got some casters there. Roach, I love them obviously, but these can be a great bait for canal bream as well, and skimmers, and they're a lovely, real nice static bait. So if you are going to leave an area of the peg quiet for a while and try another spot, these will just lay on the bottom, waiting to be discovered. And then the last two baits that I've got some fluorescent pinkies. Now these are dead pinkies. The reason why they're dead is because, again, these are going to be nice and inert on the deck, on the bottom, but I like to cap off my live hook bait with a dead pinky, because that just helps stop the actual maggot going over the point of the hook and double hooking. These just help prevent that. And the final bait, chop worm. So I've got half a kilo of Dendrobina worms with me. These are nice and finely chopped. We know how much all species love worms at certain times of year, and they're what I'm going to be feeding through the feeder. But as you'd expect, I'd also got this as another choice hook bait as well. I could put a section of worm on, a full worm, half a worm, or I can even put these tiny little bits of worm on that I'm loose feeding through the feeder. And that is it. We've got a few options there, but it's not too complicated. This wind is actually getting stronger, but with a method like this, it's not affecting us too much. Accuracy is obviously not an issue when I'm fishing at short range like this, but the main thing is we're able to present the bait. One thing that I didn't expect today is how much the canal is actually towing. There isn't much boat traffic at this time of year, but even though that we haven't even seen a boat go past yet, it's amazing how much it's towing. But with this approach, you can still present that dead bait, and when you've got fish like this in front of you, that is so important. You need to present a dead bait, and with this approach, you're not fighting the wind with the pole, so you're not dragging the float out the way. We're still able to fish on that pole line, but we're presenting an absolutely static bait. And when you've got fish like that in your peg, that can be absolute massive. And that one's even bigger than the last one. How about that? And the feeder was literally only on the bottom 30 seconds. That fish is obviously already there feeding on the feed we've put in. And that really super static bait has meant that we can present it for those proper fish. There's a couple of things that I've got with me today that I've just kind of, it's something that when you've been fishing for many, many years on venues that do get affected by the wind, you obviously pick up little things that are going to make your life a little bit easier and safer when you're fishing these sorts of venues. One of the things that I've got today, I don't always use, and that is this side tray box. It's something that I'm sure a lot of you have seen, but lots of people think that these are all about keeping your bait nice and dry from the rain. It's not. As you can see, all my bait boxes in there are actually in a recess. They are situated down there. I've been on lots and lots of venues where people with certain side trays, they've literally had the bait boxes blown off, and that definitely would have happened today had I had my bait on a conventional side tray. So by having something like this, everything's contained in there. So it just means everything's in there, it's off your mind, it's nice, safe and secure, you're not going to lose your bait, and you know it's protected. You've obviously got the addition of a lid as well, so that if it does start raining, it's going to protect it. And if the wind does get really bad, obviously you can just do that, and everything's protected. There's nothing worse than losing your bait. So that is something that it's more peace of mind as well. It means that you're focusing on your fishing. And the other thing, which is something that I still see lots of people struggling with because they just kind of didn't think about it prior to the session or the match, and that is the type of feeder rest that they use. On a day like today, the wind is really gusting left to right. The feeder rest that I've selected is the one that's got ripples on the bar, and that basically means that you can keep the rod in its position. All right, because of those ripples, it means it's going to hold the rod in position, so when that wind blows, it's obviously going to help hold it in that one position. I see lots of people using like the EVA ones that we use in speed fishing that are great for certain scenarios, but they're no good in the wind because it will literally blow your rod along the rest. And the final thing is with that style of rest is it's got a stopper at one end. Yes, we know we usually use that when we're fishing with a method feeder because those bites can be aggressive and that's how you can lose your rod. But today's the same, you know. Twice I've had my rod blow along the rest, but because I've got a stopper there at the downwind end of it, which is important, it stopped the rod where it was. It meant I could carry on fishing, but more importantly, it meant that I haven't lost my rod. Well, this looks like another good fish. That's only been in a minute again. There we go. Looks like it's in fantastic condition. Getting one or two liners now, which is telling us that there's some fish there. Obviously we've fished that sort of size. You only need one or two of them around your feed area, and you're going to be seeing indications on the tip. It's another healthy fish, great condition. Like I say, it was only in about a minute. So what I'm doing now is, because of those indications, and because the canal is towing, it's constantly towing it. I mean, it's amazing how much it is actually moving, that I'm just slacklining now. I've got a nice free running rig and I'm just slacklining and only picking up when I'm sure that there's a fish on. Well, that rain's coming. We've thrown everything at us today, but that's what happens on windy days. It's going to move these clouds. We're going to get packed away now. That has been an absolutely fantastic short session, but the beauty of it is that the conditions haven't stopped us being able to present a bait for these absolute quality fish. It's a fantastic method. It's just thinking outside the box a little bit, but it's something that you can do no matter what the conditions. Well, really hope you've enjoyed this session. If you have, please give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to hit subscribe if you want to see more videos from this channel. Thanks for watching.